All right, welcome to today's meeting of the masters. Today we'll be unpacking and discussing Ma'at and divine law and divine justice. And what does that have to do with love? And how are we to deal with those who transgress against us in life and still progress toward our divinity? We'll be talking about this and more on today's meeting of the masters. All right, so now I am your instructor today, Sabah Diamin, and we will begin with an open discussion about the last inquiry that I gave everyone. What does Ma'at have to do with love? Okay, what does Ma'at have to do with love? And right now, if anybody have thought about that, I want to invite you now to go ahead and give us your feedback on that. Did anybody think about that? What does Ma'at have to do with love? Did you do any research on that? What are the correlations between Ma'at and love? Now, we've already talked about what Ma'at is. That is the divine law. That is law that governs all of creation. So now I want to hear your feedback. We'll get started with your feedback on what Ma'at has to do with love. Anybody want to take the stage first? Just go ahead and raise your hands. Nobody thought about that. All right, Joel. And Asante, I put up your reaction hand. Raise your reaction hand. Go ahead, Joel, brother Joel. Go ahead and unmute.
Well, I think that Maat is basically unconditional love. Most people have a love that's pretty selfish.
Mm-hmm.
If, say, for instance, your spouse or your loved one cheated on you or did something that offended you, you could go easily from love to hate. Whereas Maat's love is a love regardless, and it's unforgiving love, where basically her love is a love regardless
Mm-hmm.
of what you are, as if you were her child or something like that. You forgive your children, but she probably goes even a step further. But I believe that because of the fact that her love is unconditional, I believe that that's the correlation between her and love.
Okay. All right. Excellent. And we'll talk about that because I'm glad you brought up that term unconditional love. So we'll talk about that because we gotta check to see is there a truly such a thing. Uh, okay. Thank you, brother Joel. All right, Asantiwa.
Okay, I guess mine is similar to what Joel just said. I was challenged this week big time. One was with my son, and like he said, when it comes to your children, you kind of can forgive easier. But then I was challenged again with an outside person, and I really, really had to try to practice my act because, due to the fact I was not emotionally attached. It's things I wanted to like retaliate, I would say.
Okay.
But because of going through the understanding of how my act really work, I was able to go within and forgive the person. Now, I don't know, is there a difference when you're dealing with loved ones versus someone on the outside that have done something to you almost unspeakable?
Well, we're gonna talk about that, beloved. Okay,
Okay,
that's gonna be the crux of what we talk about today. So beautiful,
good.
beautiful questions there. I love that.
Okay,
So we'll get to that. Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
I
thank you,
appreciate
beloved.
it. Uh-huh.
All right, Hunter.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. Um, this is kind of how I'm thinking about it. Um, Maat is divine law, and we're connecting it to love. The thing about love is that I've been taught that love isn't just a word; it's also work. It's action. It's action. So
Okay.
the way I'm viewing it is that the divine law should guide your action, should guide your work when you love.
Okay, I say. That's right. All right. Thank you, beloved. Appreciate that. That's another good one. Love is action. Love is action. Thank you for that. Okay, go ahead, Miss T.
Yes, I was trying to remember what happened this week with even asking that question because I've been trying to answer all the questions this week.
Mm-hmm.
But it was um, what I came up with was you can love someone. I don't want to use the word unconditionally because I'm not. I'm not saying that there are conditions or not conditions,
Mm-hmm.
but you can just love a person just because of their person, not a feeling of love, but just the expression of, we love like agape type love. And you may not love that person at the moment, but you still have that agape love of just, you know what, you're a human being, you're a person, and I appreciate you for being here, but I don't have to like what it is that you're doing. So me personally, I don't think there's a such thing as unconditional because there are conditions because you change your feelings about what that person is doing. However, you love everything, like you appreciate everything. You appreciate that, you hate that they're doing this because you can learn something from what it is that they're doing because you have to go back and check yourself like, okay, what is it that I'm doing that is making you not love me? So you go back and you check yourself, you go back and you check yourself to see, okay, something that you may question yourself. Oh, go ahead.
Be making my shit snack so bad.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, beloved.
Okay. So I totally forgot what it was this week that I was asking about love, but it was something I can't get the thought, but that was the most thing that it's, to me, it is we do put these conditions on this love because if we didn't put conditions, everybody would be in agape love and we'd be walking around just happy go lucky. But I don't think you should, just because you love someone, you don't allow them to treat you any kind of way. And I think that's what I was working on this week was my number 5, which was not allowing others to manipulate me. And if I allow other people to manipulate me, then that means that I'm not loving myself in in the things that I'm supposed to be doing with myself to reach my peace, because
Mm-hmm.
if I need to learn how to not allow others to do things that I don't want them to do, but
Okay.
me allowing it, that doesn't, I'm not fulfilling my growth in that.
I say.
So it doesn't mean I don't love them. I still love them, but I don't have to
Understood.
allow them to do certain things to me. So that's all
Okay.
I want to say.
Great. So I got out of yours. Your love is cooperative for you. It's cooperative.
Yeah, that's
Overall, yeah.
overall.
Overall, that's what I got. What I got from everything you just said. That love is cooperative, and okay, and it should be sustained through cooperation. All right, Ray.
Well, I'm going to say, based upon our study, that my art is about service. And so it's about loving, is about serving others. And if we are all part of the all, then everything that we deal with is part of us. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to keep it plain and simple like that. It's about
Okay.
service.
I say, beloved, that's good. Very impactful. Short and sweet. Very impactful. All right. Thank you. used to say. Go ahead, beloved.
Yes. So you say does my art have anything to do with love?
Yeah.
So
What's the
every
correlation?
Sunday we go over the principles of my art.
Mm-hmm.
Love is not a principle of my art. My art is about truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, order, and reciprocity. So now maybe I'm confused, but what is love then? So I guess if we were some beings that were able to always, who is
Go
that
ahead.
waving?
Yeah, he's trying to let me know he's ready to unmute.
If
That's
we
King. That's
okay,
yeah, King
if we
Julius
were
speaking
always to
late on
be
the Tuesday. The
truthful, if we
Prince
were
of the Sun
always
has resurrected again. Nice
All
to
right,
excuse me,
see
hold on for a second,
everybody.
beloved. Hold on for
hold
a
on,
second.
hold on.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Hold on for a second. Go ahead. Auntie.
So according to the principles of my art, if we were always truthful, always in harmony, always in balance, always being reciprocal, always righteous, then I would imagine that would be the epitome of love.
Okay.
But as far as I'm concerned, I don't understand why love has to have something to do with my art
Okay.
when being in balance, being in harmony in your life
Mm-hmm.
is my art. So now maybe I'm confused and maybe I don't understand, but maybe I'll get more information later.
But believe it or not, beloved, you're even with what you're saying, you were saying your answer. But what we're gonna do today, I'm hoping to bring all that together for, because you're literally saying the answer,
Okay, okay.
even as you're speaking. So, but we're gonna sew all that together, and this is why I'm asking this question, is so we can have an understand. I know we got the components, but
Uh-huh.
how are they coming together in our understanding?
Okay.
So that's it. So we're gonna sew all that together for you today. Okay. Thank
I
you,
say,
Auntie.
do I.
All right, Nini Ma. All right. So now the question on the table, beloved, King 300 BC, is what do you think love has to do with divine law? And that's what we're talking about. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Let me lower her hand. So let me get you to unmute. Go ahead. Go ahead, King 300 BC. Go ahead and unmute yourself. All right, maybe we'll come back to you because now your video's going. All right, now who else had Raheem? Did you have something you wanted to say, or okay? So try right there because you got two. Are you in here
Yeah,
twice?
now, yeah. I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead and and say what you need to say. Go
I
ahead.
was just trying to see what the unmute was, but to me, love and the correlation I would say for love and my art is one. It's all about oneness. I think being in order, the art is, keeps us in order, and that is love, being in order. It's just like for me, I think that's how we when we in order, that's when we do love ourselves. When I'm not at peace or anger, and it for me, the love goes beyond just loving people. I just had a vision a couple of days ago where a bunch of wild animals, like giant rhinoceros, running towards people, and people were running. And I walked toward them and I said something in peace, and they all stopped, and I was able to rub them just like they was a big dog. That we were glad to see each other. It wasn't, and it was in an open field, like a big forest, and the trees and everything was just beautiful. And I was just loving everything around me in the vision. It wasn't about, people or how somebody felt about me. I think that correlation is just loving our entire beingness, whether we in consciousness or in this objective form as humans, whatever. I, for me, it's just a lot to it. It's not something you can't answer in one question.
Uh-huh. Understood. Okay. All right. Well, thanks. We appreciate that because so I see that. So you basically you were saying order. So okay. Uh, Darlene, go ahead, beloved. You can go ahead and unmute. Try it again. There you go.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that and thinking about everything that everyone said. And for me, I feel like I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I feel like we've all been programmed to feel like love is a feeling. Love is loving another person, a warm feeling, a safe feeling, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel that the Ma'at encompasses all of that, encompasses all of the things that I haven't studied, I apologize, but I feel that it takes in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when all of that is in balance, that's the real love.
Mm-hmm.
And that is operating from that Ma'at place, not, I mean, you don't have to have that warm emotional feeling towards something to love it. It can be loved by following the principles, being in alignment with everything. That's just kind of what I'm feeling here and picking up.
Okay. All right. I got your. So I'm wrapping yours up in the word alignment. Okay. Excellent. These are some great feedback, and giving me a great idea of where everybody is in their understanding when it comes to this, because now this actually dictates where the information goes, how the information needs to be disseminated at this point. Let me tell you the importance of understanding the Maatian value, the Maatian moral concept, and love. It's extremely important that we understand that they are synonymous, that love and Ma'at are one. And I'm not, remember, I'll never ever tell you anything I can't prove. I'll never tell you anything I can't prove. So we're gonna go through a litany of information today so that we can make that make sense. Okay, so love, and there's a few things that I want to address here. So Joel said that it's unconditional love. When I tell you that when things become conditional, it's no longer love. So that means there is no such thing as unconditional love, because that's to imply that there is a such thing as conditional love. If it's conditional, it's not love. All right. Now the utmost and the epitome of the definition of love itself is to give and expect nothing in return. That's what love is to give and expect nothing in return. Now, we got to explore the premises on why we should do such a thing. Why should we give and expect nothing in return? What are we giving? Because I know right now we always think when we serve others, when we give to others, we give our time and energy and attention, that we're giving something away to somebody else. That's the falsity. That's the illusion. That's the lie. You're not giving it away to somebody else. Okay? Think about this. Are we in agreement that we are a myriad of expressions of the one divine consciousness? Anybody disagree with that? And don't be shy. It's okay. It's not a right or wrong thing. And there's no shaming in this class or nothing like that. I'm not going to put you on blast, because everybody's viewpoint is valid here. Okay? So is anybody in disagreement with that we are a myriad of expressions of the one divine consciousness? All right. So then, if that's a fact, then whoever and whatever that you give your attention, energy, and devotion to, you're giving it to yourself. All right? So this is why that it's important to understand that when you give, you're still giving to yourself. And you shouldn't expect anything in return because it's already been done. What you do to others, you have already done to yourself. Okay? You also do to yourself. So you're also giving to yourself because everybody here is an expression of that same one consciousness. This is how you are connected. And this is, you are that one consciousness having an experience with itself. Anybody here disagrees with that? Anybody else feel something different? Okay. So then that's the epitome of love. So that means we should be unlimited in our giving. So who brought that up? Ray said service to others. This is important that we understand that is a very important thing, that we are always in service of others. But what are we in service to? Give me 1 second, King 300. I'll get to you in just a second. So what are we in service to? How are we serving others? Remember that our complete reason and our chief objective for even coming to existence is for what? Enjoyment. Happiness and enjoyment. That's what we're trying to secure within creation. This is our creation. You don't create something that you don't want to enjoy. Okay? This is our creation. We are part of that same supreme consciousness that created everything. Okay? Now, when I say something you don't, that ain't resonate with you, that's fine. Raise your hand if you want to say something, okay? I don't mind. So we are all part of that one supreme consciousness that created everything. And we created this everything for our own enjoyment. So that means everything that we do in service of others should be to promote that enjoyment. Should be to take away discord. Okay? It should be to take away discord and take away isfet, which is disorder. And the reason why those things exist, because everything, there is a duality in everything. And we're talking about everything existing in different degrees. So when there's the complete absence of divine light, then you have pure evil. But that has to exist. That has to exist. Because when there's a complete absence of darkness, there's only divine light. Our job here within creation is to balance the two. Because that's what gives us experience. That's what gives experience itself value. We have to have something to stay away from and something that we're going towards. All right? So this is important. King 300, let me get to you real quick and then I'll complete my commentary. Go ahead and unmute, beloved.
I didn't hear the question. I had to move. I didn't hear nothing you said. Everything was like choppy. So I got to the next spot.
Okay. So the question that's on the table is, what does Maat, divine law, have to do with love? What's the correlation between divine law, the law that governs everything in the universe, what does that have to do with love? What's the correlation? So that's the question that's on the table. All right? And what does that mean for us as humans? What does that mean for us as humans? Go ahead, Asante. And remember, I'm going to ask everybody again, if you have something, go ahead and raise your virtual hand. That way I'll know exactly what it is that you're trying to do. Go ahead and unmute Santiwa.
Okay, I'm having the same issue here. But anyway, what I'm trying to get a clarity on in regards to giving without expecting anything in return. Mm-hmm. If a person is in need and you're assisting them and giving them, they said, can you loan me money? And then you don't get it back. Should we consider that giving without expecting in return if you already know that person don't have the money and don't have a means of how they're going to pay you back? So is that also giving without expecting anything in return?
That is a great example of that. But then why are you giving if you know you're not going to give it back? That's important to understand. Where's that giving coming from? Is it because you love that person and you want that person to still go forth and be able to do what they need to do? You know, is that why? Is it so? That's what we call compassion. Having
Yes, because
compassion.
you see the person really in need as to why you give in the first place,
So,
because
mm-hmm,
they're on the verge of maybe being homeless or whatever the situation is.
mm-hmm.
So you know they're destituted, but yet you know deep within they may not pay you back.
Right. So this is what I'm saying. Wanting for others what you will want for yourself.
Okay.
That is the epitome of love. And yes, that is still within alignment with Maat because we're talking about harmony.
Okay.
We're talking about balance. We're talking even reciprocity. Whatever you put out there, it's always going to come back to you somehow, even if it's not directly from the source which you gave.
I agree with that.
Okay. So we know that to be the fact.
Hmm.
So there's always reciprocity. And because we've all had experiences like that, we know that when we've given, that sometime in that week or sometime at some point something happened a little bit out of the norm for us,
Hmm.
which was good. Okay, so we felt this reward or something like that happened. So, but even so, whatever you give, you're changing the world. Even with the act of giving itself, you're changing the world. And we're gonna look at that because I'm gonna show you a little. We're gonna look at a little bit of a DNA, how this affects. Now we've already seen how thoughts affects water. Now let's see how our true intentions, how our actions, and what we do with ourselves, how does that affect DNA? So we're gonna look at that today as well. Okay, so get a deeper understanding. Um, King 300 BC, you ready? You ready to speak, brother? You ready to speak? Go for it.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. You ready to speak? Go ahead, man.
Yeah. Hey, first and foremost, kings and queens, how you doing? Um, so I heard something about Maat and love, how do it coordinate, and what I can give y'all so far from what me knowing about love. And
Okay, we only got about 2 minutes, brother.
2
We
minutes?
capping everybody off in about 2 minutes. Okay, so go
Okay,
for it.
well, I want you to talk then, cause
No, go for it. I want you to say what you gotta say, but we just gotta. Well, go
Well,
ahead.
love was something I tried to hide because I thought the flesh of a man, of not having my mom and dad around, is what I needed. So that pain is what drove me into the darkness. And what drove me out of the darkness was that thing we call love. Because if it wasn't for that, I would have never came out the dark trying to, explore that other part of me. Love brought me back to form this new human and to give me a chance out of the dark. That's why I take love. Now I'm here to really get the real deal.
I love that. What I love about because I know your story, and the thing about it is that's the other thing about love. And when we're talking about giving, love will have you to change yourself to make a better situation between you and somebody else. Because what King 300 BC was just talking about, he was out there as a young man. I mean, really out there. Okay, I'll leave it up to him to at some point to tell you his story. But he was out there, but he had to come back in for the sake of those that he loved. Okay, so that was an act of love. Love should make you want to be better. Period. And in turn, we're talking about Ma'at. And again, we're going to look at all that as well. Thank you for that, beloved. Go ahead, Hunter. Let me make sure you can unmute. Go ahead, Hunter.
All right, you can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want to know if at any point in this discussion, when we're talking about love and we're talking about giving and service, if there can be a distinction between the giving and service and enabling.
In enabling. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll have a discussion about that. We can discuss that because that's true too. That's a good point. In fact, I talk about that a lot with my clients. You know, as a counselor, as a spiritual advisor, and a life coach. When I'm dealing with families, people, parents, and their children, what is the point of enabling versus assisting with forward movement? All right, so that's so important to distinguish, because enabling, it's almost as if you know that this person is doing something that's not good for them, or that's not developing them, and you allow that person to continue in that action by assisting them to continue in that action, by doing it for them, making it easier for them to do that action, and negating the fact that they have to they're missing opportunity for their own personal development. Okay, now personal development is always a challenging situation, and those that we love, we have to allow them to go through those situations for personal development. Like they say, what is that saying? If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, you can feed him for a lifetime. That is personal development. All right? Versus the first one, giving him the fish is enabling his situation, his lack, his inability to provide and forage for himself. So that's a great point, Hunter. Thank you for bringing that up. All right. So love is when you allow somebody to develop personally. That's still love. So we call it tough love, right? That's what our grandmothers have actually called it. They say it's tough love. All right, go ahead, Kenya.
I had a question that's kind of on the same lines, because what came up to me when you were talking about giving love and giving it and not expecting it, but at times, like, you'll give too much where you're not giving for yourself. A lot of times where you have mothers or people that give and children and family.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but there's also has to be where you're not depleting and not taking from yourself. So I'm just trying to understand how there are times where you're giving and yes, you're getting in return, but then you can also be not giving yourself self-love.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's kind of what was the question in my mind. I guess
Okay.
it's just a balance of that. I guess that's
Another great question, because now when you know that, now you know you're operating in a situation that's out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's not that because here's the thing. Here's the thing about giving and expecting nothing in return. If everybody is giving, then who is going to be without?
Mm.
Okay, if everybody is giving, then everybody's also receiving. It's not the receiving that you need to focus on, just the giving. And just make sure that everybody that you're connected with is also focused on giving. That means you won't be without. That reciprocity is automatic. It is a fact of divine law, as we'll see today, under the principle of cause and effect. All right, so we'll talk about that. So, and the thing is, if you continue to give to somebody, and you feel like you're spending yourself, then you have to check yourself to see maybe you have an unhealthy attachment to that situation. And all attachments are unhealthy. But so look at your attachment. And maybe you are also self-seeking. Okay? Because you're looking at it in a very limited way. You're giving, you're pouring into it just so you can finally get something out of it. That's self-seeking. That itself is not love. That's selfishness. where love is selflessness.
I mean, I guess what
Mhm.
I guess more I'm thinking in the lines of where not necessarily you're doing it on a conditional situation, just in general, you can forget about yourself by doing and not doing the same for yourself. I guess that's more what I'm meaning. Like,
Right.
um, I don't know.
Well,
I guess
remember,
it's just something
it's
to
still
think
up to you to
about.
make sure that you are getting everything you need.
Right,
That's still up to you. And you should never ever do that to the point to where that's severely
right.
compromised.
I guess that's where the mod comes in, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because it's still up to you to govern that flow, okay, of what you give to
Right,
yourself versus what you give to others. Make sure you're not, in no way are you to excessively give to others and do other things that you have not done for yourself.
right, right,
Make sure, because ain't nobody going to come and make sure you're healthy. You need to
right,
make sure you're healthy.
right.
You know, your time, your energy, stress related, managing stress or eliminating stress, that's really up to you.
Right, right. Okay.
All right. So this is why we also have to make sure that we inspire others to do the same. Because if we're all in this position to where we're self-maintained, to where we are healthy, mind, body, and soul, and we have all of our foundational things taken care of, from finances to security to shelter and things like that. Now we're in a position to help those less fortunate, to assist those less fortunate. So that's why you keep yourself in that position. But for somebody who comes along and have the means to put themselves in that same situation, but they just choose not to, they need a lesson in personal accountability. And you got to be able to distinguish the two. Who's really in need versus who just being lazy because they can get over on others. And we know we have a world full of those kind of people. Have a world full of them. All right. Yes, Miss T.
I wanted to I came up with this new thing. Life is so easy, but it's so hard. And I was trying to figure out the same thing that she was trying to figure out. Is like, how do we do this? It's because life has so many moving parts. And those moving parts are the Ma'at, the truth, the balance, the justice, the harmony and order, propriety and reciprocity. And you have to distinguish what part and what level you're in when you're dealing with the giving. Let's say you're the giving at this point, you're giving something and you gave this one time. Okay, the truth is that this person needed this at this time and you gave of your heart, you let it go, you walked away. And is it still in balance? Because did they come back and say, I need more? You're like, I don't know. Did you finish the first thing of the truth of what you said? I needed it for the car, but now you need it for this too. And then is it right what they're doing when they're coming back and asking and asking and asking? Is it still in harmony? So it's so many moving parts in just that one situation, let alone that's just that one person. It could be something else or something, or somebody stuck on the side of the road, or your kid needs this, or your auntie or your uncle, or all these different people. And then it's the reciprocity of I gave, and did that person reciprocate? And it's not that you don't love them or care when you did like 10 things for them and you didn't do it to get anything back. But when you ask them for this one thing, they totally forgot that you did all of these things for them and you're not thinking about it, but you came to the realization of the balance. Guess what? This is imbalance. I'm giving a little too much. Let me step away because now my harmony, my peace is no longer being happy. So I recognize that there are so many moving parts with so many different things without speaking to a specific situation, that's what I've been dealing with this week is, wait a minute, all of these moving parts. I know I've helped this person. I'm not using it in a way to say, hey, I did all this for you, so you should do. No, I just gave. You didn't appreciate what I gave because I could have done it a different way, but I was trying to help. It helped me, it helped you, but you're looking at it like, hey, I'm using you or whatever. I'm like, nope, let me step away and go somewhere else with it because you don't even see that I did something, you don't see it, and you're gonna have to just figure that part out by yourself, like the enabler. They're just going, you just have to let it go, walk away, and they have to go through that with your kids, with the enabler, with just about anything. You have to let them fall. Even with children and babies, you just gotta let it go. You gotta let them fall or they won't learn.
So this is the main thing. So you're gonna have to understand when you're putting conditions on love. You have to, so anytime, as soon as you get into the space to where you're saying, I did all this for them and I just come to them to ask for this one thing, or they're not appreciating. See, those are conditions that you're putting on the situation. So this is what I mean. And I know, and trust me, because of the human part of ourselves, where these emotions reside, we might get to that point sometime to where we see that these people are not pouring into us the same way we're pouring into them. So the thing about it is, this is why the cultivation of a spirit that's constantly at peace. And so the act of giving gives you the satisfaction. You have to make that your goal and nothing else. You see, so you have to be satisfied just because you were able to give. And remember what we're talking about. Let's look at this from a metaphysical standpoint. Metaphysically, remember that the act of giving, when you give with joy, when you give with an open heart, you are opening up and unblocking a conduit that allows abundance to come into your life. Now we know that. Everybody, you have to be open to it. Because as soon as you give in a limited way by expecting something in return, you are now closing that abundant flow. All right? This is from, and remember, consciousness rules all. Consciousness rules all. So you need to act like and feel like that you just have it to give anyway. You have this energy, you got this attention, you have this ability and this love and compassion to give. And let that be your goal. And let that be where your joy and happiness comes from. Just the ability to do so.
Give and go.
Give and go. And I'm telling you this because this is where you begin to release those other things in life that binds up your ability to be at peace. Because now you have put that power in somebody else's hand as soon as you expect something from them. Whether it's something as simple as appreciation. Because they can choose not to appreciate it. They can display lack of appreciation. What is that going to do to your spirit? That's going to prohibit you from being at peace spiritually. You don't want to give somebody that type of power. You see? So, yes, we live in a world to where mostly people will do that. But remember, this world in this dimension, this is like the Navy SEAL training of divine ascension. It's tough. Okay? It's tough. It's going to call you to do things that doesn't make sense, third dimensional sense. But from a divine standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world. All right? So these things are important to distinguish. So do things for the sake of doing things. And remember, you can do nothing that you ain't doing for yourself. No matter who it is you're doing it for. When I'm putting together these lessons and everything, I have all of you in my heart. This is the way I give. So I don't hold back. I put in what's within my ability to put in it. And I'm still doing my own research and cultivating my own spirit so I can give more. You see, just so I can give more. That's out of love because I know I'm cultivating a people, a group of people that's gonna know how to give and expect nothing in return. I know I'm cultivating that. And that itself, we're gonna be the seed that spread this type of love throughout the whole world. That's what's important. All right, so let's get into real quick. All right, go ahead, King 300 BC. Go ahead and unmute. Then after him, then we're gonna get into this presentation. Go ahead, beloved.
I wanted to share. That's how I actually ran into you, because I followed that day. I ran into you on the red line train. You know, my blood pressure was up because I was in the zone. You know, because I thought that even California, y'all not gonna make me believe that this universe is not my playground. I can live anywhere I want to, and try me. That's how you ran into me. I had that mentality. So the divine forces came with love. I seen it. That's why I spoke to you. You spoke to me, and we were both on our guard. You know, and that thing you talking about is what I follow. I follow. So I appreciate you for following it too and taking that love to the next level. Because if you didn't have love from where you came from also, you would have never been able to grab it, to even take it and manifest it, and then me to grab what you got and take it and then manifest it. So I appreciate you, man, because a seed of a tree, the leaves and the branches won't grow without, you know, somebody grabbing the seed for the tree. So you grab the seed for the tree, man. So you're part of that trunk. You're part of that trunk, man. I appreciate you, big bro, because I
I
know how
appreciate
much
you
it
too, man.
is
It's
to
you
be
give me
able
that
to
opportunity. That's why I say I'm always looking for the opportunity to express that love. So thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah, and you converted. You convert. I know the conversion of the 99% out of the world. When they come out of that system, they go right back in that revolving door. And I know plenty. So for me to pull out, to run into you, to now be able to see that, oh man, I'm happy I didn't get the 40 years to life, because it was something deeper. And I'm here. I'm about to be 30 this year. You know, so I'm just grateful, man, that I followed that feeling and not what I thought it was.
Ashe. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. So yeah, so we'll get into more of me and King 300 BC's story, you know, at some point, because it's a magnificent story. And also I'm looking to build with my brother Akhenaten. And the thing about it is that I can appreciate, I have beautiful relationships with males, with other males, and I think that's important. When it comes to men, we need to have beautiful, strong relationships with other males. So the relationship that I have with Brother Ray, Brother Wayne, even Joel. I mean, we're building on what we have. Brother Raheem. And the thing about it is, it's just so important that we build beautiful relationships. And I encourage the sisters to do the same. Build beautiful relationships with other sisters. You know, that's important. That makes us go out to be better for each other. You know, that's important, to where that love and that reciprocity is there even among us in our own sexual category. You know, so that's important. So let's get into this real quick, because we got a little bit more discussion and things to get into. All right, so let's get into this presentation real quick. All right. So here we go. So today we'll be through this presentation, we'll be going through Maat, you know, the divine law, justice, and protection, the law of Heru Khuti. All right, Heru Khuti is the enforcement arm of divine law. Remember, this is the second act of creation, where Maat was the first act of creation. Now justice and protection was the second thing that was laid out. You know, it had to protect everything that was put in place, protect the order, but also it had to make sure that if anything fell out of order, there was an answer for it. Okay? So we're going to look at that. And then we'll determine how we should truly react or respond to even those that transgress against us, whether we're calling them oppressors, enemies, or whoever. How do we do that? Your first interest and your priority is to cultivate and to expound upon your divinity. All right? That's important to understand that. Now, let's look at some objectives today. So we're going to give a clearer picture of how divine law Ma'at works, and also expose the discrepancies in our collective thinking, which we already started doing by the conversation we just had. All right? To redirect the mindset to align with an understanding of divine law, and to reveal the level of security and protection already written within divine law. All right, so now let's have a recap of the laws of the Spirit. This is important because I want you to see, you're going to start to see a connection. You'll start to see a connection. Now, let's look at the tree of life itself. So right there above in this circle, we have Amen. And the law of Amen says, you were made in the likeness of a piece that nothing can disturb. Reclaim your peace that you may attain your reason for coming into existence, the enjoyment of life. Now listen, you notice that Amen sits above the tree and there is no line connecting it, because this is you in your true home, your true origin. The tree itself, once we get to the first sphere, that's objective reality. That means that's within creation. Amen is before creation. This is your natural state of being, even before creation. Now again, I asked all of you before, are you in agreement that we are a myriad of expressions of that one supreme consciousness, that one divine consciousness that created everything? Everybody agreed. That one divine consciousness came from, or still resides in and projects through creation from what we call Nun or Nu. Some people might even call it heaven. But heaven is subjective. But for sure, our ancestors recognize it as Nun. All right? So then, whatever we were there, that is the totality and the ultimate expression of our pure, natural, unconditioned state and expression. And we want to bring all of that all those characteristics and attributes into creation. That itself is the divine plan. So that you can operate within creation as for lack of a better term, I'll just say a God man and God woman. That means you have all of the ability to manipulate the forces of nature itself. All the objective reality. Make things change form, create things from thought at an instant, and things like that. That is the attributes that we're actually attaining to. So I want y'all to think about that as we go through this, because that is the ultimate reward for your divine ascension. And if that is it, then you don't want anything getting in the way of that. All right? But I know this world is tricky. Now, looking at this second sphere, Ausar. And Ausar says, the law of Ausar says, your nature is the unconquerable peace. Therefore, nothing and no one in the world can be against you. All experiences come to you to promote your reclamation of peace, that you may in turn acquire wisdom and knowledge. All right, so think about this. Now, this speaks to our oneness. So, that your nature is an unconquerable peace, that means you're not being true to yourself, to your own nature, when you allow anything to interrupt or take you out of your realization of peace. So it says that if that happens, then you violate the second part of this. You think that something, someone, or something in the world is being against you. And that's not the truth. That's another illusion that we live under as humans in the third dimension. We think things are happening against us. But this says that all experiences come to you to promote your reclamation of peace. That means your challenges in everything is to help you reclaim your peace. Develop that peace. You have to realize that peace even in the midst of challenge. Okay, so that you in turn you can acquire wisdom and knowledge. All right, now let's look at the next sphere, number 2, with Tehuti. And it says, when all of your thoughts, feelings, and actions reflect the word of Unter, the power of Unter's spirit and a peace that nothing can challenge will flow through your being. Unter being our Kemetic expression for divine being or God as translated into the Greco-Roman text. So I like to go with the original. We say Unter. And Unter is that divine consciousness, that divine power that we are a myriad of expressions of. And our goal is to fully express and bring Unter and all of its characteristics into the world through us. But it says when all of your thoughts, feelings, and actions reflect the word of Unter, the vibration of Unter, the power of Unter's spirit, and a peace that nothing can challenge will flow through your being. We have to look at the power of Unter's spirit. That power is saying that we can manifest anything anytime we want to. All right. Then we have the third sphere, Sekhert. And Sekhert says, when the emotions of man manifest in response to the word of Unter, they have the power to influence the course of any and all events in the world. So this is talking about your manifestation. Remember, we're talking about omnipotence here, your spiritual power. But look what it says, when your emotions manifest in response to the word of Unter. That means the vibration and the understanding of bringing and allowing Unter to express through you. That your emotions need to manifest in response to that. Because emotions are important to the manifestation of things. Nothing happens without an emotional interjection. Okay? So remember, you create with emotions. What do you think negative emotions such as anger, worry, fear, sadness, what kind of creations do you think you will get out of those? Let me give you a hint. Look around the world. Look what's going on in the world. We are definitely not hurting for news of sad stories, news of conflict, news of ill-gotten gains, news of tragedy and torment to others. You can go to the internet right now and not even have to work to find them. And all of those are expressions of somebody that have actually created those situations from the standpoint of these negative emotions. And trust me, nothing you do, nothing you think only affects you. It affects others. All right? So Let's understand. Let's keep these laws in mind as we move to this next law. All right. So this is the law of Maat, which is the fourth sphere of the tree of life. And the law of Maat states that Unter needs you in order to come into the world. What we just talked about. Fulfilling Unter's need is the highest act of love. All right, so here we go, Ma'at and love. And only through your love for Unter can you fulfill your love for others. Become the love of Unter in the world for the protection of the world. Now, what does this mean? That fulfilling Unter's need is the highest act of love. Well, we go back to the statement before, Unter needs you in order to come into the world. We already understand that what we're to do is allow Unter to fully express through us in the world. Okay, so, and it can only do that through man. Unter can only express all of his attributes, all of his qualities through mankind. So you need not block that. You need to be a constant source and expression and example of love itself by doing what we just talked about, giving and expecting nothing in return. It's just like what you do to a garden. Okay, when you have your food, your produce growing in your garden, look how much work that takes from beginning to end. You have to look at it like that, that all of your work, you making sure that the soil is nutrient rich, and then the seeds are there getting nurtured with water and nutrients from the soil. And then patience, as you start to see it sprout, then stems and everything grows until the point that eventually it bears fruit or it bears vegetables or whatever it is that you planted. But that's months and months in process. But then you always reap what you sow. You always reap what you sow. It's no different in the way that we interact with others. We're always planting seeds. We have to nurture the environment. All right, have to make sure that the environment. So we're always giving, because in the end, what you create through your giving is a beautiful world. I can't imagine somebody liking the one that we actually experiencing now in a whole. So we have to make sure that we cultivate a good world. The only reason why the world is the way it is because of man's antics. If you remove man out of the world right now, it would be at peace. Even with all the vicious animals, the sharks, the bears, the tigers, the lions, and so forth, even the crocodiles and so forth, even all these vicious animals, this world would still be at peace without man. But it also can be in complete peace with man in it. So that says that man is the determining factor on how much peace and how much lack of peace is in the world. And that includes you. That's your species, mankind. All right? So now, let's look at some of these things. Let's start to deduce these laws, the law of Ma'at from the previous laws. So deducting the law of Ma'at from the laws of Amen and Ausar. All right, so if we are one with all, which is the law of Ausar, in satisfaction of our essential conditioned state, which is the law of Amen, then the logical emotional expression of this oneness is love. If we are one with all, then in satisfaction of that peace, which is the unconditioned state that we come from, then the logical emotional expression of oneness is love. So love is the emotional expression of Ma'at. It is just that. That's the emotion. So just think, remember I just said that emotions are responsible for everything that's manifested in the world. If everything manifested in response to our expression of love, where would we be in this world? We wouldn't be in the third dimension. Let me tell you that. Okay? We're in the third dimension, which is a very low vibrating dimension because there's a lack of love. Now, let's deduce the law of Maat from the law of Tehuti. If we are one with all, love for all then is an expression of wisdom. If we are one with all, then love for all is an expression of wisdom. And we're talking about all. And I know some of you are going to have a problem with this once that sinks in. Okay? Let that sink in. Love for all is an expression of wisdom if indeed we are one with all. All right, so let's deduce the law of Ma'at from the law of Sekhert. If we have access to spiritual power, then there is no need to fear loving all, especially given the fact that the power of love is the supreme manifestation of the powers of the Spirit. So if we have access to spiritual power, if it is true then that we can manifest anything that we will at any time, if that's the truth, then there is no need to fear loving all. There's no need to fear acknowledging that love in your connection with everybody and everything around you. So you never have to go independent or as an individual. Stay connected in the interest of the acknowledgement of love. All right. So it says here that the power of love is the supreme manifestation of the powers of the Spirit. The Spirit is strong. The Spirit is everything. It responds positively to love. Spirit is the same thing that we call Ra. Ra is that manifesting force. Ra is everything that permeates through all of creation. And Ra was the first, that energy that Ra represents was in existence before anything else. So now, let's take a look at a little bit. I'm going to give all of you a little bit of, for all of you that come to the Ma'at class on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m., going to just give you a little bit of taste of what we'll be, Simsidna will be uncovering. But just a little bit of taste. So this, what I'm about to do, I'm a quote from this book, Ma'at, The Moral Ideal in Ancient Egypt by Maulana Karenga. So we'll talk about the Ma'atian theology. The Declaration of Innocence is the name of the chapter, which is chapter 4. And if you have that book, you can open up to chapter 4 right now if you want to read along on page 135. All right. So quoted from this chapter 4. So it says moral theology, like all theology, evolves from questions, assumptions, and critical reflection about God, the transcendent, and ultimately turns to the meaning this has for humans and the world. However, given its concern with the moral, this species of theology deals with developing and understanding interpretation of God's moral meaning for humans and the world. Ma'atian theology is unavoidably a moral theology. Indeed, the very category of Ma'at is rightness with extended and inclusive meanings of truth, justice, moral order in the world, etc. And it speaks to this understanding. Okay? The very category Ma'at is rightness with extended and inclusive meanings of truth, justice, moral order in the world, etc. speaks to this understanding. So it speaks to the understanding that it's talking about is also a moral theology. All right, so let's look a little bit deeper as to what this says um, on the following. I think it's the same page. I'm actually reading from my notes, not the book actually. So, but this is actually coming from the book, quoted from the book. So, Maatian moral theology is organized around 7 fundamental and interrelated points of departure, i.e., or for example, around understanding and interpretation of first, the meaning of God and especially God's moral character and attributes for emulation and what God wills, wants, and requires. Secondly, the meaning of humans and their relationships to the divine nature and others. Thirdly, the required character, virtues, and agency of persons. All right. Fourthly, ideals and values to infuse and embody in society. All right. Fifthly, criteria for making moral choices and judging others in society, and values and principles to use in the processes. 6, sacred texts and teachings as sources of moral principles and practices. And 7, the purpose and end goals of a moral life. All right, so these are the 7 principles and criteria laid out by Maulana Karenga. I love the way he did this, and he has broken this down, and is to emphasize that this is what we need to also do to bring back this moral ideal, this Maatian ideal. And it's the way it's the way of life that we need to get back to. This Maatian theology. Okay, is more ancient than what's in the world right now, and actually it worked. And anytime when we remember, if you have been studying this book with me, anytime that there was a letdown, or every time we eased our foot off the gas of this particular theology, we fell into what's called the intermediate periods, which was a periods of disorder. And each time that the new kingdom, so it switched in between after the intermediate period, then it emerged a new kingdom. So it went from old kingdom to middle kingdom, and in between old kingdom and middle kingdom, there was that intermediate period. And remember, we were just studying in this book what was being thought of when they were trying to figure out what happened once that middle kingdom developed. They had to figure out, well, what happened, what got us in that period, so we can not do that again. So they struggled with this. Going through dynasties and things like that, and somehow they couldn't put their finger on what was really happening when they had over 3,000 years of peace in pre-dynastic times. All right, they had over 3,000 years of peace, and this is what they're trying to get back to. Now, let's look at one thing that we have to understand. So Ma'at goes beyond just our physical experiences. But remember, by the time it gets physical, there are many planes that it travels through before it even becomes a physical manifestation. And these things are laid out in one of my favorite books that outlines the 7 principles of natural law, called the Kabbalion. All right, the Hermetic philosophy. And anytime you talk about Hermetic philosophy, you're literally talking about Tehuti. Okay, Tehuti was named Hermes in Greece, and also Thoth in Atlantis. And his name became Hermes Trismegistus, which means he who lived 3 times or thrice lived. All right, so they understood that Hermes had also lived as Tehuti in ancient Egypt, and also in Atlantis, ancient Atlantis, as Thoth, the author of the Emerald Tablets, and which is a controversial set of works. And it's controversial because many said that they don't really exist, but then there are some saying they actually do exist and they have been found. So I haven't seen them in person myself, but but I do read them. I have the books on it, but remember also that Tehuti is the father or grandfather of alchemy, what they ended up calling alchemy. All right, but it was called Kimmi at first, or even in ancient Egypt or Kemet, it was literally nothing more than spiritual power. All right, spiritual power. So alchemy is literally talking about the transmutation of the spirit rather than the way it's portrayed through metaphor, which is the turning of lead into gold and through an alchemical process. But it's literally talking about making a spirit something new. Although other readings have said that people have actually achieved that, but it was never ordinary people. So you can't access that level of alchemy without high vibration, without being a high vibrating being. So no matter what processes that we're talking about going through, the first process is to transmutate the spirit before you can transmutate any metals. All right. So now let's look at these 7 principles of natural law. The first of which is mentalism. All right. The second will be correspondence, and we'll get into the definitions of these some other time. All right. The third one is vibration. Fourth is polarity. The fifth is rhythm. The sixth is cause and effect. And the seventh is gender. Now today we'll only be looking at 2 of these. And one of which is going to be correspondence. All right, so correspondence is one that claims as above, so below, and as below, so above. Now, it claims that there is always a correspondence between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of being and life. So this is what I'm talking about, is that this correspondence highlights that whatever thoughts we generate, whatever emotions we send out, goes through these planes before they come back to the physical plane. All right, so that's what correspondence talks about. And this is very, very ancient understanding. And there are planes beyond our knowing, but when we apply the principle of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us. All right, and again, that can only happen once you expand your consciousness. But you have to seek. This is something that this is not going to fall in your lap. You've got to be proactive in gaining this understanding. All right. So even you won't even get the complete understanding through this course. This is personally applied attention to these subjects that you will get the understanding. All you can get is the outline in this course, or any course for that matter. Even in this book, it only allows for the outline. But the details are going to be in your personal experience. All right. So now, let's talk about these 3 great planes. So as above, so below, as below, so above. So the first is the great physical plane. All right. And second, the great mental plane. And then there's the great spiritual plane. Now, these divisions are more or less artificial and arbitrary, because the truth is that all of these three divisions are but ascending degrees of the great scale of life, the lowest point of which is undifferentiated matter. Okay, the lowest point is undifferentiated matter, and the highest point is that of spirit. All right. So let's see. Now, let's look at the principle of cause and effect. We reap what we sow. Remember, we just talked about that. Think of the garden again. We reap what we sow. Every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. The Kabbalion. All right? Let that sink in. I really, really want you to think about that. Nothing escapes the law. Every cause has its effect, but every effect has its cause. And even in some, every effect become a cause. We're talking about the echoing effect of it. It all depends on how you respond to the effect. Remember, the effect itself is in the physical plane. All right? So now let's look at the cosmological constitution of divine law. All right, so now we're just going back so we remind ourselves that first, the fourth manifestation and the first act of creation, the first thought about things, will therefore be the ruling principle of their existence. This fact is later elaborated into the principles of law, order, and love, which is Maat. These are like guarantors of oneness in the lower world. So as long as we stay in alignment with Ma'at, it guarantees oneness, it guarantees harmony, it guarantees order, guarantees reciprocity. So this is what these divine forces are doing. So this particular law, this divine law, actually guarantees, as long as we stay in alignment with them in our thoughts, feelings, and actions, and when our emotions manifest in response to them. All right, so you have to be aware that there is law, and you cannot escape law. When you start operating according to that understanding, your life changes. The fifth manifestation and second act of creation, this time and for the first time, Untur looks out at the world to come and focuses on the requirements for experience. In order to live, the one being must be broken into a myriad of beings, that's you. So Untur becomes aware of the fact that the existence of the word depends, or the world, that's supposed to say world, of the world depends on there being differences in opposition. All right? Differences have to be differences in opposition. It here guarantees them. Okay? And at the same time, with these differences in opposition, that they have their rightful place. Differences are just uniqueness. The unique ways that we express. The unique ways that Untur expresses within creation as its myriad of beings. All right? So we have a right to be different. It's okay. We shouldn't judge each other because of our differences. Okay? And then when we have people that have opposing views, different perspectives, they have a right to have that. It all depends on which side of the statue you're standing on would determine what your perspective of it is. But nobody should be encroached upon or prohibited from having their perspective. And they can, even with their perspective, they have no right to encroach upon somebody else's perspective if they're in disagreement with it. All right. So basically, this is what the world is going through today. All right. So now, what happens then? So when we talk about this opposition, we talk about those that we call oppressors, and those that transgress against us. What is it that is the correct way to respond to such things? Why is there a correct way? Why can't we just fly off the handle and go and avenge ourselves? Do what we feel. Because see, we have this little thing called DNA that we have to answer to. And so Ma'at is actually has its laws expressing even at that level and even into the microcosm. Okay, even below DNA expression. All right, so let's look at that real quick. So the physiological expression of natural law. So our genes work much like a library. All right, so they contain a plethora of information, and this information provides the body with instructions on how to operate. So your body can actually choose which genes to express. So much like on library search, how you can go into the library and choose which books you want. Well, your body can actually choose which genes to express. Now, this phenomenon of reading specific genes is well recognized and has been given the name epigenetics. Okay, so in an article published in Time magazine in 2010, which is what you're seeing here, entitled "Why Your DNA Isn't Your Destiny," the work of Dr. Lars Olov Bigren, which is he's a preventative specialist and researcher, is discussed in this particular book, in this article. So Bigren studied the effects of feast and famine on children growing up in Norrbotten, Sweden, in the 1900s. He discovered that the dietary and lifestyle conditions affected the genetic expressions of not only the individual, but also their children and grandchildren. He concludes it is through epigenetics that environmental factors like diet, stress, and prenatal nutrition can make an imprint on genes that are passed from one generation to the next. All right? So something as simple as this. Let's see what this looks like from a diagrammatic standpoint. Now, what we're looking at here is a diagram of how these things express. So we have the epigenetic mechanisms here. So they're affected by these factors and processes. First, development, which is in utero in childhood. All right, environmental chemicals, drugs and pharmaceuticals, aging and diet. All these things are affect the epigenetic mechanisms. All right, so remember that this is after we come into being, even in utero. Right, when we come into being there, what are we experiencing and how are we responding? What is the mother going through at that time is going to affect the genetic expression of the child. All right? Why? Because the body is taking in information. And we're going to see how the body responds to the information that it takes in. So environmental chemicals. So believe me when I tell you, and they have done this, they have taken certain chemicals, put it in certain foods that can only target genes expressed through black people. They have done that. This is why you have to be careful of what it is that you eat. This is why it's important that we take that into our own hands, feed ourselves. All right. So there's many of you, and I know I'm speaking to a very intelligent group, but there may be a lot of things that's going on that we may not be aware of that's still affecting us. But because we experience it and we don't know where it's coming from, we turn on each other. You know, we blame it on each other. So also, of course, we know drugs and pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals are just genetic manipulation tools. They manipulate the senses of the body, and they can feed information into the body artificially and get the body to respond a whole nother way. And a lot of times it's only taking away the symptoms for whatever disease you are dealing with, but it doesn't deal with the disease itself. Because why? Pharmaceuticals and drugs have side effects. That means they're ruining something else. So something is out of balance. They create an imbalance. Now, I myself, I am a degreed orthomolecular nutritionist. And again, my job is to implement a nutritional and herbal regimen that's parallel with the pharmaceutical regimen for those who are in chronic illness, who have chronic illnesses, and who are actually dying without this process. So the pharmaceutical regimen makes them comfortable. But the nutraceutical regimen, the nutrients from herbs and high doses of vitamin A, vitamin D, and so forth, is what's going to cure them of the ailment while they are being made comfortable by the pharmaceuticals. So this practice is not as widespread as it should be. In the clinical settings, it is a very specific and exclusive type of thing. Okay, so in other words, it's only for the rich because it is a very, very expensive form of treatment. Not many, and doctors can implement this if they choose to. They can, but they choose not to because they're drug dealers. Most of them. I ain't saying all of them because there are some good doctors out there. All right. Now, also aging. Aging is going to be determined on these other factors. Determines how we age. And also diet, as we've just been talking about. Okay, diet itself. Getting the right nutrients in the body is important. Okay, that's important. All right, so here you have the chromosome, of course, and then you have your DNA. Okay, that's what the chromosome is made of. Now, within that, we have what's called a methyl group. So DNA methylation regulates gene expression by recruiting proteins involved in gene repression and or by inhibiting the binding of transcription factors to the DNA. So in other words, it can determine whether or not this gene expresses or whether it doesn't. It can inhibit it, it can prohibit it, or repress its expression and inhibit certain binding of transcription factors like other chemicals and things like that, right? So then we also have histones. It's going to be these blue things. These histones are proteins around which DNA can wind for compaction and gene regulation. All right. Now I know I may be getting a little technical, but I just bear with me because I think this is important to understand. This DNA rules everything, but it's also affected by conscious operation. It's affected by everything that we just talked about in these laws, your thoughts, feelings, actions, and the emotions that manifest. They will determine how these genes manifest. Now take a look at this. So we have the histones and we also have a histone tail. All right. Now let's look at this epigenetic factor. This is one of the things that attaches to the histone tail. And it creates what's called histone modification. This is the binding of epigenetic factors to histone tails, which alters the extent to which DNA is wrapped around the histones and the availability of the genes in the DNA to be activated. Now remember, we have, although you might see what's normally known as a double helix DNA here, right? The potential that we have is a 24 helix DNA. So those other 22 strands are not even being expressed. They are repressed and unprogrammed in what we understand to be unprogrammed DNA, formerly called junk DNA. Okay, which we'll get into that later in this course. We'll talk more about junk DNA and its expression as well. But with these histones and these epigenetic factors, those parts that are not being able to be available for expression, they have recoiled so much to where we fell into third dimensional existence. Okay, so even to have more than two already puts you more into a higher dimensional status. So what you're looking at is a third dimensional DNA strand. And yes, scientists have actually recently come out, and I will find articles so I can show you, to where they're finding that they're seeing a third strand growing and expressing in some individuals. That's good news, because eventually that's going to spread to all. Eventually. But we all have to do our part. So, and this is why I'm telling you all this. The more love and the more that you put out there, we're affected. Everybody's affected on this level. And if we can affect others and inspire the growth of those other strands, we all move to a higher dimension. And we can get rid of the stuff that we don't like about this particular world in this particular dimension. We can get rid of all of it, but we have to play our part. And all I can say is, with racism, with prejudice, with excessive expressions of anger, sadness, worry, and all, that's not going to do it. That's going to keep us expressing this way. So we all have to play our part. This is why I say you are not an individual. You are an expression of a whole, one consciousness. One consciousness. Now look, pay attention to these chromosomes. Now we know that these chromosomes exist within the nucleus of each cell in our body. How many cells do we have in the body? Anywhere from 70 to 100 trillion. And each one of those cells express uniquely, but they make up one body. So you have to think of yourself in the same way. You are one cell in the body of mankind. And when we right now, mankind as a whole body has cancer. And it has spread so much to where it's at the point to where it would be considered stage 7. Okay, which is very, very severe. And so we have to turn it around. If we want to, there's no healing you as the individual without spreading healing to those around you. Recondition yourself. And this is why they say, for the love of the world, for the protection of the world, this is what you have to do. You have to heal and recondition yourself. Bring in your divinity. Allow Unter, which is that divine source within you, to express in the world. And that's going to only happen through love. This is why you have to expand your love and understanding and compassion to all of the world. Everybody. Regardless of what has been done. Now, what we're looking at here is, so only one of these paradigms is, only in one of these paradigms is their consciousness being conditioned to evolve. So there's a reason why the pharmaceutical industry tests their drugs against the so-called placebo effect. Okay? There's a placebo effect, right? Everybody understand what that is. So if we look at physiology and medicine over in this area, we have the physiology of society, individual physiology, the organisms, the systems of the organism, the organs of the systems, the tissues of the organs, the cells of the tissues, the proteins that make up the cells, then the RNA, then the DNA. Okay? So when we look at this, medication, pharmaceuticals, and treatments of such that is manipulating these. And we're talking about, even from the standpoint of medicine, what they call shamanic medicine or anything, they don't necessarily, they trick the mind into getting here. It's kind of an artificial. This is why when the high comes down, whether it's LSD, ayahuasca, mushrooms, acid, or what have you, or no matter what it is, even some of these ADHD medications and any kind of mental illness medication that manipulates the chemistry. Okay? This is why it says here, laws of chemistry and physics. They just manipulate the laws of chemistry and physics within the body. But that's why it wears off and you go back. You cannot transcend with medicine. You can't trick yourself into being better. You have to do the work. And so this is why when they compared this alongside transcendental meditation, and they found that there was a more lasting and permanent effect on the changing of the mind, the constitution of the mind, the brain, neurological systems, the activation of the prefrontal lobe, and its connection to the cingulate cortex, as well as a smaller amygdala. A larger amygdala, which is the amygdaloid body within the brain, which I had already shown you guys before. You can go and look in previous sessions for that. But the amygdaloid body is where the emotions are stored. The responses to our emotions, emotional events are stored in that. And that's where the memory of those emotional things are stored in the amygdala. And so, and a lot of times is those responses, if we keep replaying those responses in a way, the smaller that amygdala is, the more I guess the more likelihood it is that person gets stressed or angered or made afraid, the smaller the amygdala is. So somebody who meditates more increases the size of their amygdala. All right. So then the emotional memory has more room, number one, but it also has more room for more expression, more a various amount of responses, emotional responses, because you meditate more. So then during meditation, you're also transcending the likelihood of responding with anything other than peace, because you're increasing your development of peace during transcendental meditation. All right. So then we have a unified feel of all laws of nature then that we also tap into because of that. So this is what we call Maat. The unified field of all laws of nature is Maat. So once we access that through transcendental meditation, there is no access to it through pharmaceutical or drug manipulation. But you can access it through transcendental meditation. This is what we call the alignment, beloveds. This is the alignment. Okay, so the key here is to cultivate that peace within yourself. Reconnect with that transcendental or that unconditioned nature that you have within you that helms from the law of Amen. And stop responding to these challenges or these physical experiences with these negative emotions. All right. So now let's look at and this is we're getting wrapping up here, the principle of cause and effect. So every cause has its effect and every effect has its cause. So everything happens according to law, remember, and chance is but a name for law not recognized. So when people talk about, oh, it happened by chance, there is no such thing as chance. There's no such thing as coincidence. Okay? Everything is law. All right? Many planes of causation. So that's just saying that people don't understand where these things that's manifesting are coming from. There's always a reason. None of you crossed my path just out of chance. This was destiny. This is because you were open and already ready and receptive to what's going on here. That's why you're here. That's why I'm here. Okay? That's why I'm here. That's why I'm teaching now, because that wasn't in my plans. But I did that, and like they say, when the teacher is ready, the students will appear, and when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. All right? So that's all about, this is what we call the law of attraction. So you reap what you sow. So every thought, feeling, and action sets a string of events in motion that must play out in response to their initiating cause. All right, so let's look at this, how this looks from a physiological standpoint. So within the body, we have, of course, hormones, which are messengers, chemical messengers within the body that tells the body what to do. All right, so let's look at the primary cause. So we're talking about growth hormone, okay, and releasing hormone. Growth hormone, release hormone. So basically, this is a hormone that releases growth hormone. That's the cause, right? Secondary cause is going to be to access the growth hormone. All right, and then the effect is stimulate growth of the body. So basically, there has to be a hormone that tells the body to release the growth hormone, which is the secondary cause, and that cause is going to cause the growth of the body within the body, right? This hormone. So a hormone that tells the hormone to come, and that hormone is what tells the body what to do. You see how that is? Cause and effect. There's a primary, secondary, and secondary cause, and then the effect itself. All right? So and these are just natural things, right? This happens below our level of awareness and everything. But we can also stimulate this through being put pressure and stress on the muscle, which is what we do at the gym. This is how we grow muscle. All right, and that's for those of us who don't use steroids, by the way. We put stress on the muscle in order to grow the muscle. All right, that's what stimulates the growth releasing hormone, and then the growth hormone, and then it causes the body or the muscles to grow. Then there is a growth hormone inhibitory hormone. Okay, so then there has to be a growth hormone that there has to be a hormone that tells the growth hormone to stop being there. Okay, so then it inhibits the growth hormone release. It tells it to stop, and then it ceases the growth of the body. All right, so this could be after puberty, after we reach our height, and and things like that. So it tells the body when to stop. So in other words, it's always instructional. There's always instruction given to every process in the body. All right, then we have the prolactin hormone releasing hormone. So basically, this is the hormone that releases the prolactin hormone. So prolactin comes out, and then it tells the body to stimulate milk formation, to cause the milk to form, the body to form milk. Okay, so that has to happen. And then we have the opposite. Okay, one that tells the body to stop producing the prolactin hormone so they can stop producing milk. All right, so then we have this one. Stressful response to challenge is the primary cause of cortisol. Okay, cortisol. And then when cortisol gets in the body, it increases blood sugar levels and suppress immune system. Look at that. So anger, worry, fear, sadness is a form of a stress response. Okay? So when you respond stressfully, you are going to cause the formation of this hormone called cortisol. And it will increase your blood sugar levels. Do you know that over 90% of diabetic conditions is caused by stress, not the food that you eat? It's not about taking in the sugar from dietary sources, but it's about the stress that causes the release of blood sugar all at once within the body. So we have these things that we call glycogen that's stored within the liver and within the muscles. When cortisol shows up, all of those stores of sugar increases or releases at the same time and increases blood sugar levels, which will also increase the levels of insulin, but also it makes the cells resistant to insulin because it gets too much. Okay, it gets overwhelmed, gets too much, and then that's where the A1C is actually measured. That's the measurement of A1C in the blood, and if it gets too high, then you are said to be a diabetic. So this actually is caused more so from stress than it is from eating sugary foods. Because everything that you eat breaks down into glucose. Everything. It doesn't matter whether it's fat, or whether it's carbohydrates or whether it's protein. Hopefully, the body doesn't like to break down protein and fat. It prefers the source of carbohydrates to break down into sugar to store it. Okay, and then it can be regulated through the release of insulin and things like that. So, but then when those stores of glycogen gets filled up in the liver and the muscles, and then cortisol comes along and it releases all that sugar that you've been eating all into the blood at one time. All right. So then we have a peaceful response to challenge. Then releases oxytocin, which is a feel-good hormone, and it decreases the effects of stress. So this is why it's so important to cultivate that peace, because it does affect your health. Okay, so it decreases the effect of stress, which decreases cortisol production. Okay, and then this is just what's happening within the body. We ought to know that if you get stressed, how will you respond to the world around you? You're going to stress it out too. So everything is stressing. And then a constant chronic stressful response has an effect on DNA expression. Okay, so now we got these epigenetic factors coming into play. And now remember that this is what you pass on to your children and grandchildren. So nothing you do is about you. It's about all of us. All right? Hope that's understood. Now, let's look at the facts to be understood from today. So adversity and opposition is a fact and necessary truth that is prevalent throughout all of creation and is necessary for physical, mental, and spiritual growth. All right? Think about that. We're going to talk about it. In order to allow the increase and maintenance of health and wealth, we must address all challenges in life through our natural response, which is peace. We exist to perfect our use of creation. Okay? We're here to perfect our use of creation, which is the physical plane, so that Unter can enjoy it through us. Reciprocity and interdependence is the basis of order and abundance. Reciprocity and interdependence, okay? Interdependence being that we depend on each other, is the basis for order and abundance. Love is the supreme force of the universe. Hopefully that's clear now. And oneness is what must be realized for the evolution of our collective consciousness. Oneness is what must be realized for the evolution of our collective consciousness. All right? So hopefully all of this came together for you today. And let's just take some time and discuss what we just talked about. All right, family. How's everybody doing? All right. If anybody got anything they want to say, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll unmute you because. All right. Go ahead, beloved. I used to set. Uh-oh. Try it again. Try it again. There you
Okay. All right. Wow. So it's a lot, but I'll just talk about cause and effect.
go. Okay.
So you say there's a cause for every effect and there's an effect for every cause. Then you say everything goes by laws. Wait, let me see, what did you say? Everything happens according to law.
That's right.
So so I was thinking about the cause of the killings and the effects. So the cause would be a person's thinking or mindset, and the effect would be, I'm talking about in the killings that just happened and continue to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not according to law, is
Right.
it?
Well,
And so I imagine the cause would be their thinking or their mindset or whatever it is, and the effect would be the death of others. So how could that be according to law?
okay. So we know that these things happen, so we can see the physical sequence. The cause itself is, first of all, in order for anybody to kill anybody, you automatically have relinquished your idea of oneness with others. You cannot, there is no way that you can keep your divinity. So that's the primary cause, is that you don't see you have lost touch with, let's just say, I wouldn't say reality, because reality is what we're experiencing, but there is a law. So there is a complete ignorance of law and understanding of who you are, for you not to understand that you are one with all. So in order to kill somebody, you cannot know that you are one with somebody else. That's first of all. Then the second thing, we talked about these epigenetic factors starting in utero, right? Within the womb. Look who's killing these young men, young white men, of course. But look how old they are. They have been like I think at the most at 21, but this one was one of them was 18.
18,
so forth.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
think about what they are feeling. Now, a lot of times, now these are kids who have they have privilege, right? They must have, because it was the day after he bought the gun, right?
Yeah.
So there's some level of privilege there, right? But also think of the conditioning that he must have been going through from parents and from his environment, from the people in his environment. So you see, all these are causation. So remember, but each one is affecting him on the mental plane. They're affecting him on the mental plane. They are reconditioning or resetting his paradigm. Now think about him as a baby. Did he even care who was black or white? Did he even care who was Mexican or whatever? As a baby, we don't care about that.
Right.
So we're reflecting our unconditioned nature as infants, and everything else is poured into us. The ideas and the perspectives that we get is poured into us first by our parents, then by our peers. Okay, then it's gonna be, those become the experiences that we have, and that's what conditions us. And so at some point he got completely convinced that this was okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That this was okay.
Yeah.
Because it felt better for him to do that than it is for dealing with whatever reality he was dealing with. I don't even know the story. I just know it at first, and we're talking about the one in Texas, is it correct?
Yeah.
That's one. Okay, so even that one, he shot his grandmother in the face before he went, and this is the story anyway. I'm just going by the story. So he shot his grandmother in the face before he went to the school, crashed his truck, and then spent 12 minutes so far outside of the school shooting at folks, and then went inside. I'll be honest with you, none of this stuff makes sense to me, because people in Texas don't move that slow. But but he was shooting outside and somehow still was able to get into the school and go into a classroom and shoot everybody. Something that just is not connecting there with me. But let's just take it for the way it's written. Right? But either way it go, what drives somebody, what makes somebody okay from a spiritual standpoint, if in fact our nature is peace, and then something had to come about to disturb that, to change that truth for him. Okay, something had to. So this is what we call the conditioning.
Right. Okay.
Somehow he's been conditioned. So this is the law that we're talking about. For everything, remember what I just showed you with the hormones. There had to be something that broke his connection with everything, like those hormones. There had to be a hormone to tell the body to release a hormone, that even before it took its effect on the body. So there had to be a conditioning, something in place to break his connection with everybody, to break his connection with his essential unconditioned nature, and then fostered his mindset that allowed him to feel okay with doing what he did. And this is in all these cases, by the way, because there's been a lot of them. I don't know if y'all been keeping up, but it's been a lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Asians and who got killed, hate crimes. Of course, we know about the one in Buffalo,
Right.
the supermarket,
Right.
and so forth. So what's going on? So this is what I'm talking about. Yes, all this is manifesting according to law, but what we see is an imbalance. somewhere there's an imbalance. And remember, it doesn't happen to one person. If that one person is out of alignment and not put back in alignment, then the world suffers. Okay? The
Okay.
world
All
suffers.
right. All right. Yeah. So I was, they're being used or something, or since they're so young. And another thing, I just want to thank you for that, talking about diabetes and the cortisol and oxytocin. And these are all things that as a therapist, I would talk to clients about. But now I'm the one who needs to do the work, because this is why I know my doctor is not going to help me to get rid of this diabetes. I have to do the work to rid myself of diabetes. And this is just what you just said, right?
That's right. Remember,
that medicine is nothing.
Work the
so
law.
I want to really thank you for that, because my doctor, I don't even care what he has to say anymore, because he's not telling me about herbs or anything else other than this so-called medicine.
Yes.
So yeah, I want to just thank you for that.
Ashe. And just remember all of that. Work the law. It's all about law. Even cancer exists through a manipulation or an out of balance of the expression of law. Cancer is an effect. So when we talk about Heru Khuti, what Heru Khuti stands for is the justice. So when something's out of balance, there's an answer for it. When the body gets out of balance, the answer is disease. That is written within natural law. And so all you got to do is understand the disease and trace it back to its true causation. And all I can say is within the body, when homeostasis is disturbed, okay, the natural order of the body is disturbed. When that natural balance in the body is disturbed, that's when disease comes to play. So find out what caused the imbalance. And that's always going to be how you perceive, how you're emoting, what your thoughts, feelings, and actions are, what you're convinced of. All that kind of stuff has more to do with disease than food. Now remember that if you're eating bad food, these are just components that can aid in the production of disease. So that's like just the kindling. That's something there that's a flammable thing, but the flame itself comes from your levels of stress. You see? So even if you look, I met a woman when I was a paramedic. She was 100 years old. This was back in 2003. I had to go pick her up from her home because her daughter had called and said that she had mistook her daughter for her mother. Well, that's what her daughter said. So I'm calling and blah blah blah. So we get there and the lady's laying in bed. She's a white lady, white hair, beautiful smile, had all her teeth and everything, and big old bright blue eyes. And she was just the sweetest lady, right? And I asked her, I said, so what's going on? She said, well, I just misspoke. She said, I didn't mistake her for my mother. I just misspoke. And she panicked and called. And I said, well, do you want to go get checked out? She said, I really don't need to, and she was like, mother, you need to go, blah, blah, blah. And I said, just let us take her to get you checked out. She can come with us and bring you right back. That's just for precautions. And so she agreed. So I got into the back of the ambulance. I did her vitals. Then I always have to ask for like ID and stuff like that. But before I did, I said, we were talking, and at some point she asked me, she said, how old do you think I am? And I said, I don't play that game because I can't be right on that, So she said, just take a guess. I said, well, don't be mad, but because of the white hair, I give you 65. She said, thank you. I said, what?
65.
She said, thank you. Well, at that time, I was, it's 2003. I was barely 30 years old. But, but she said, thank you. I said, what? She said, so here. So I said, she said, I'm 100 years old. I said, no way. So I got her ID, and sure enough, she was born in 1903. She was born in 1903. She was 100 years old. Wow. And I had to ask her then, I said, so what's the key? What's the secret? Because you're doing well, and all those were her teeth. She had not lost any teeth. And this is a white lady, still had smooth skin. Her skin wasn't wrinkled. She didn't look like an old lady. It's just her white hair. She still had smooth skin, beautiful smile, and was very articulate. Still had all her marbles, despite what her daughter thought. And I asked her. I said, "What's the secret?" She said, "Well," she said, "Well, I didn't pollute my body. Number one, I didn't drink or smoke." She said, "I had my snacks every now and then, which I loved. I loved chocolate and things like this." She said, "But I was." She said, "At 65, I was still out there playing tennis. I was still active, very active at 65." She said, "But I ate my vegetables, and I had and she said, you must remember, I come from a time before the food got manipulated." She said that was the time where there was no such thing as organic when I was coming up, because all the food was the same high quality. All of it was, because we ate straight from the gardens and stuff like that. I said, yeah. She said, because remember, I lived through World War II. It didn't change until after World War II. That's when the agriculture industry changed. And I said, wow, that's good thought, you know. But so basically, she was fine. Her vitals were fine. Her blood sugar was fine. Her blood pressure was fine. Her eyes were equal and reactive, you know, all that kind. She was good. After asking her questions, I determined she was not like a threat to herself, and she was not going crazy or whatever. So I just took her to the hospital. They checked her out. She was released within a couple of hours, you know. So this is what I'm saying is no, basically all of this plays a part in it all. She kept her diet controlled, and she kept stress down in her life, because she was well off. She was well off, but she also didn't stress. She didn't go crazy by drinking and all this other kind of stuff either, you know. But she said she enjoyed her life, and that was the key. She said, I enjoyed my life. So I say, wow. So all of that plays a fact in the level, in the degree in which we attain disease, you know. So this is important to understand, that again, cause and effect. Think about what it is that you're these causes that you're allowing to take effect in your life. Look at your life. What is it that's out of balance? What effects are you getting that you don't like? And how do you begin to change that? All I can say, if you're not 100% enjoying life, then you're not quite where you need to be. Figure out what parts of life you're not enjoying. Why you're not enjoying it. What's keeping you from enjoying things in your relationship or what have you, and do something to change it. Find out the cause. It's going to be still within you. Find out the cause and change it. Work the law. That's what I'm asking you to do. Work the law.
I say.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie. All right, Miss T. Oh, wait a minute. Let me get you unmuted here. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a question. You said the 7 principles. That's somewhere in one of the books, right? Because I saw it somewhere.
But those 7 principles, that's not the 7 principles of Maat. Those are the 7.
No, I know that the 7 principles of Maat is, well, different truth, justice, and balance.
On other plane, other levels.
No, I know I read this somewhere, but I just wanted to get mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, and I missed like the other 2.
What I got here for you? I can't remember what you just said, but let me look.
Mentalism, correspondence. I don't know if I put them in order, but
you sound like you did. So mentalism, correspondence,
vibration, polarity, rhythm. I should have put this in the note. I should have just.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. I'm trying to figure out which ones you don't have. So vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender.
Cause and effect was one?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I have cause and effect here. I just put it on it. So 1, 2, 3.
That's 4, 1. And then gender.
Gender. That's the one.
Because if you notice, we have polarity and gender. So
and so what? Well, I know. Well, we didn't talk about it. I don't even want to get into it, because if you're going to talk about it, another thing. But that's fine. So you talked about mentalism or correspondence, and you talked about correspondence and cause and effect.
Yes.
Okay, not a problem.
Now if you let me see, I do have it. So I actually have a couple of books, versions of the Kabbalion. So this is the version that was just displayed there, and this one has some illustrations in it, and I also have two other versions of the Kabbalion up there, and these are just people. So the original authors are the three initiates. It's a mystery who they are, but this is a very, very old writing, and many people have given their commentary on it and rewrote the books, but they still have to give the three initiates their their, in fact, the original writing by the three initiates was not meant to be sold, because it was meant to get out to everybody in the world, right, as much as possible. So if you can, look to get the book, and just studying it. So the Kabbalion, really, you can start with any version, but I have this one, and I have there's another one that gives a little bit more details on each one of the principles as well. All right. So I would say get into that, but don't listen. No matter what information it is, always explore the information. That's important to explore it.
I did want to say something about the cause and effect to what she was saying, because we talked about, me and my cousin had talked about how, like what I said, they were like, oh, they shot the guy. And, of course, where we're in our position, we're like, well, some people would say, oh, it's good, we don't have to like have a trial and stuff like that. The unfortunate part about that is all the families that were affected, they don't get these answers, and society doesn't get to say, hey, what was wrong with you? Why were you so, if the kid had lived, what was going on? My mom, my dad, whatever, that we won't get those answers. But let's say he did live, said, my mom was like this, my dad, whatever he said, society hopefully would be able to say, what, let's offer these programs, because that's what they try to do. Society tries to do that. But, of course, we're in this such a destructive world that people, don't even, they don't understand. So I think the mother might have been on something. It's like, well, why is she giving, a speak, or why is she speaking? And it's because people are still going to want answers, but they still don't look at, there is a reason. I mean, we don't know what that reason is besides just the fight between spiritual powers and the laws and the principles and stuff like that. It's just, we'll never know, but we have to, once again, push that love, push that, what, not that it's okay per se, but something always is going to grow out of that. Something is always going to, with that destruction of something, you have to push something that's going to be positive that comes out of it. Maybe that the two kids, or the one kid that even survived it, what he does with his life, or how he changes the world, or how he does whatever he does, because he's important to that whole situation, and he just doesn't even know it yet. And the families of him and the rest of those families, and what they do and their responses to the whole, gambit of just that one situation, let alone a myriad of other situations that happen on a daily basis with people.
Yeah. So we have to. Let me read you something in response to what you just said. This is coming out of the Metanetta Volume 4, in the chapter of Heru Khuti on page 178, if you have it. It's at the top. It talks about, it's under the title, The Balance of Heaven and Earth and the Law of Heru Khuti. So it says, it cannot be disputed that wrongdoers must be dealt with. How is a matter of endless debate unless one understands spirituality. From the spiritual or heavenly point of view, all wrongdoers must be restrained, and all efforts must be made to regenerate them if at all possible. Goes on to say, punishment, especially execution, on the other hand, is a human invention. It cannot be carried out without the loss of divinity. All right?
Wow. That makes sense. That, I mean, from what I was even thinking yesterday, that makes so much sense. Of course, you reiterated that earlier in the conversation today. it makes sense. Like you cannot, like you shouldn't kill that person. You can't do it because it doesn't solve that thing. You know. Wow, that's deep.
So he speaks about that, and like I say, if you go to the Metanetta Volume 4, this is talked about, and that chapter begins on page 177. It's chapter 10. All right, so if you want to go there, and you can read that chapter on that as well. All right, and let's see. All right, thank you, beloved. Let's see, Darlene.
Yes, I just wanted to share that this whole world is out of balance. And what you are teaching, what we are learning is to become in balance. And this government, and it's not even the government, it's a group of individuals who have been doing really horrendous things, even to us, the Black race, wanting to get rid of us, doing all kind of experiments on us, trying to figure out things on us, and wanting to have the white race survive. But in the interim of all this, because everything is out of balance and because we are all one, they're actually doing things that are killing the white race as well. So it's like what you're teaching is just is to me is like the answer to all of this, because I've been one that's been about the white man and what he's done and all this kind of stuff. But what he's doing is doing it to all of us.
That's right, because this trust me, on that level, they're not thinking about race.
No.
They're not thinking about race. So that's why I want you all to stop thinking about this is a race thing. So you don't become, because as soon as you become racist and prejudiced, you block yourself from your own divinity.
Right.
All right? You block yourself from your own divinity. So get that out your mind, get that out your spirits. If you are to ascend, and remember, at the end of the day, when you meet them scales, your heart butter not outweigh that feather.
Right.
All right?
Right.
So release all of that. And peace and the cultivation of a peaceful spirit, that's the key. Okay? That's the key.
Yeah, I really got that when the conversation came up that these children and so many of them were white children, or they weren't Black children, and then these things that are happening to us, we're getting shot, we're getting killed. It's almost like it's all turning in on all of us, and so the only way that it's going to change is by us raising our consciousness so that we can change the world.
I say. So be an instrument for that change. Bring that light into the world. The light comes through you. That light is unter.
Yes.
All right. So let the light come into the world.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, beloved. Now we do have to close out. I'll let Miss T have a quick word. Okay. All right. So we have to close out because I do have a meeting that I'm already late to, and I appreciate it. And so be on the lookout. And if you guys feel like that we probably need a little bit more discussion on this, let me know, and I can actually set something up for maybe this coming Thursday to where we can just get on and just have more dialogue about it. Okay, because this is a very important part of our understanding of the part that we play in our reality and also the upliftment of the world. All right, this is so important. All right, so I appreciate all of you again, and I can't tell you how just how much I'm honored with this. So we'll conclude, and I will look forward to seeing you all soon. Okay, so be on the lookout for this recording, as well as the notes from it, the slides, and there also may be an assignment with it. All right, and everybody else, get in your assignments from the last trimester when you can. But I do want you to think about it. So I'm not rushing everybody, but fully think about the questions. All right, because I want this to have an impression upon your soul. All right, thank you, beloveds. Tuan Latir and Unc Uja Seneb.